Hello and welcome back to my channel. For today's card, I am bringing out a die set that I've had for a long time and have yet to use. And that is the Scrolls Infinity Dies from Hero Arts. For my scrolls, I don't want them to look fresh and new. I want them to look a little bit aged. So I'm going to do some ink blending with antique linen and brushed corduroy. I'm going to concentrate most of the color on the left and the right sides because I feel like that's where it would be the darkest, as it would be the part that was handled the most. I'm also going to give it a little bit more color at the bottom, and then I'm going to darken up the sides a little bit more with brushed corduroy. And here I'm just lazy masking with some post-it tape, or a post-it note, and I'm going to just add a tiny bit of shading above the rolled edge. Now here I didn't really think the edges were quite dark enough, so I'm going to use some gathered twigs. Now you notice I have picked up the paper and kind of scrubbed the brush along it. This just gives it a more concentrated color but in a smaller area. Now I'm going to make my scroll look like a pirate map or a treasure map, so I'm going to use Ahoy Matey from Fawn. And initially I thought I was going to use gathered twigs to stamp out my images, but then I decided that was maybe a little bit too dark, so instead I opted for brushed corduroy. When I first started making this card, I had envisioned this going in a totally different direction than what I took it. I'm still fine with it, it's just not the type of card I would normally make. I usually stick to the super cutesy look of Fawn. So now I have Lovable Legends, and I'm just using the little boat from this, and this particular stamp set is retired, so I'm not sure how easy of a time you'd have getting it. I also have Critters in the Past, and I'm just going to use the rocks because I felt like they were the right size for my map. I'm also going to stamp some extra palm trees. And now for the X that marks the spot, I am going to use Aged Mahogany. So this will be the only thing that's red on my card. I opted for this particular red because it does have a somewhat brown look to it. Next, I'm going to take this tawny cricket pen, and I'm just going to do the little dash lines. I went through my stamp sets from Fawn, and I have several that have the dash lines, but I didn't feel like they fit well enough together to create the shapes that I wanted. Finally, I'm adding the little waves here and there all over the panel in both sizes. Moving on, I have this Wood Planks stamp, it's a background stamp, from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm going to use this in conjunction with my scalloped box card pop-up die to create a treasure chest. So I have die cut the box from brown cardstock, and I am going to stamp that wood plank stamp set on parts of the scalloped box paper in order to create the wood grain. And I have used ground espresso, and I stamped this several times trying to get it to be just slightly darker. I didn't want it to be too contrasting where it looked fake, but I thought this might be a little bit too light. So I did decide to bring out Black Soot Distress Oxide and stamp it once in that too. Now I'm going to selectively trim off some of the flaps from this box because I only want the back one to kind of look like the treasure box lid. And I didn't want them to be completely flat because I did want to add a gold border to the top of the treasure chest. So I'm actually measuring at, I believe it was a 1/2 inch, and I'm just leaving a 1/2 inch for 3 of the 4 flaps. And I am going to fold these down, and it'll be a border to the top of the treasure chest. I'm probably explaining it very poorly, but you will see in a moment. So I'm going to use my Princess Gold embossing powder from Ranger, as well as some embossing ink, and I'm going to cover the flaps. I did use the extra pieces that I had cut off to create a couple additional strips where I also heat embossed them in gold embossing powder to add some more gold detail to the front of the treasure chest. I also have used a die from the Stitched Teapot Fawn die set, and it's just this tiny little rectangle with a heart in it, and I'm going to make that as like the lock in the treasure chest. I did color inside of the heart so it actually looked like there was depth to it. But here, instead of using the full embossing ink pad, I'm just using one of the pens just to try to make sure that the center doesn't get covered up. once it's been embossed and cut, I can add it to the center between my other gold details right at the top. Now, this is one of the last minute decisions that I made where I have brought out the Mom and Me stamp set as well as bringing back out the Ahoy Matey stamp set in my brushed corduroy Distress Oxide, and I'm going to stamp on the smallest of the scrolls, and I'm going to put my sentiment there. So it's going to read, I treasure you. So the I and the U came from the Mom plus Me stamp set. Now, this whole process was trial and error, and I did it on camera, which is slightly stressful for me, honestly. I guess I'm glad it wasn't live or anything. It was just a pre-recorded thing. But here I've decided to trim down the bottom of this smaller scroll. I want it to fit inside of the treasure chest where you can pull it up from between two of the little inside panels. I don't even know what those are called. But now I have to add some stoppers to the bottom of this scroll so that it doesn't pull out from between the layers. So I just used some more scrap pieces from the flaps that I had pulled off of the box. And then I'm going to add some at the top, but this time onto the little insert instead of the scroll. So as you can see, I'm making it so the little scroll doesn't actually pop out of the card. I should note these little stopper pieces that I'm using, I've actually glued 2 of them on top of each other to give a little bit of thickness. Once I have that done, I am going to carefully place my little scroll in between 2 of the inserts to kind of sandwich it in there. I'm just using some cheap clips to hold it in place so it doesn't pop apart. And then I'm going to adhere my box together. Now, because I was winging this card the entire way through, I did not show the die sets that I got these hearts from, but they were just random Lawn Fawn sets, and I have cut out several hearts from glitter cardstock that was white. I have done the brown, where I have added the gold embossing powder. I've also used that Valentine's heart borders. I did show that one. And then I cut the long strip in half, so I think it was, 6 hearts for each piece. But anyway, I had done the same gold embossing powder on some brown hearts, and then I have cut out a bunch of different hearts from the pastel pearlescent vellum from Lawn Fawn. That was one of the newer products they had released. I don't remember if it was a couple releases ago. It's not a super old product anyway. But my intention was to make them kind of resemble gold coins and gems. Now, after randomly placing some on this one, I do find that the vellum is kind of difficult to get it to stick to things with the liquid glue, but it does stick eventually. I always start with the long line of the gold hearts just to kind of bulk everything out. And for this one, not only am I going to add the little hearts along the insert, but I'm going to add some to the very top of the scroll. This will help prevent it from falling in, and it'll help hide it a little bit so that you don't know it's there initially. Now that that insert's done, I can add it to the card. The reason I didn't do that before was because I felt like it was a little too tedious once it was connected to other pieces. And then I'm just going to put the rest of my box card together. I'm going to add a little bit of the gold coin hearts at the front, as well as a couple of other little hearts. I just wanted to make it look like the treasure chest was full, and then here you can see how the mechanism works. Really simple. Last but not least, I'm going to adhere the large treasure map to the very back flap, which is kind of like the treasure chest lid, and here you can see how it works. I have desperately tried to show you what this looks like in real time. It's kind of difficult to film with one hand and use the other one to move a card around. But anyway, that is my final card. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I know it's not like the other ones I usually do. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll be back with another video soon. Bye!